Yeah, hello, welcome to a new video in the E4, E5 repertoire series. Um, Originally I had intended to do this video about both the Ponziani opening. This is on the third move here, C3, the position that is on the board, and also I wanted to show something here about the Four Knights game. But in the end, I decided to split this and do this video just on the Ponziani. Well, this opening is very rarely encountered. It's I don't know. I think I played it only once in a tournament game after a couple of years of E4 E5 experience. And what does add here? I need to click it away. Yeah, I only got it once in a tournament game, and I hadn't really studied it before, and I didn't play the best way, but well, I equalized quite easily still. But the Ponziani is something you will rarely get, but it's good to know the best line against it, because um, with this black has really good chances to even play for an advantage, not just equalize or get an even position. You can play for an advantage in lots of the lines. The main defect of this move here is c3 is that it's very slow. It doesn't really put pressure on black, and the most important thing is it doesn't do anything about the move d7 d5. If you look at this position and consider the main moves, which would be bishop c4, which prevents d5 of course in a very direct fashion, you've got the Spanish, which also prevents d5 as e5 is hanging at least. And also if you look at knight c3, this also prevents d5, and d4, the Scotch, yeah, basically also prevents d5 at it is opening the center immediately, and you cannot get in d5 so easily. So c3, it's no surprise that the best move is d5, and this is a rather typical response to a c3 move, as after taking and the queen recaptures, you won't get hit by knight c3, so this position is already fine for black. If white plays d4 now, you have the choice. You can take on d4 and transpose to the Nordic or a Goering gambit, what I did in the last video, just capture here. Or you can even try to exploit this and omit this capture, going for a long castle immediately, and black has a fine position also. So this is not the idea. Actually, white's idea is mostly tactical here. He wants to install a pin now on the knight, and this can be done by queen a4 and bishop b5. I think I'll go with bishop b5 first. This is the traditional main line, but it has got the nice virtue for black that it is basically leading by force to black advantage. But you need to know your theory here, and also be ready for some tactical battle. So black takes on e4 now. My phone is ringing. Well, just ignore it. D takes e4 now. Knight takes e5. And now, of course, there's a pin here on the c6 knight. White threatens to capture. And black answers with a very direct move, queen to g5. And this is very, very tactical now. If the knight, let's start with the simple moves. This is the main move. If white would capture here, you would even have the choice to take on g2 or just capture b5. This is just good for black, getting the bishop here, and the knight doesn't have a decent square, but queen g2 also would be possible. The main move here is queen a4, renewing the spin. but white might also play d4 here, covering the knight on e5 and also attacking the queen. You capture on g2. Now the rook is hanging, so white doesn't have time really to do something on c6. Rook f1, and now the very nice move bishop d6. This has the tactical point that if white captures with the knight now, you can play the nice move bishop d7, pinning this knight. It's really worth remembering this kind of motif here to might use it in a game, not actually in this specific position, but it's nice to know the idea. And black is very good here. He destroyed white's kingside. White can also go for moves like this here, attacking f7, but you can just go g6, queen moves, takes here, bishop d7, and after knight ge7 and long castle, black just has an easy game. He's got an extra pawn on top of all, and also an attack on the white king coming, because white's king doesn't have a decent place. He just lost his pawn and has a rook on f1. It's just a silly position. So d4 isn't really playable at all. Well, in fact, the whole line is not playable here, but you need to know your stuff because it gets really wild now. Queen a4. White could also capture here first and then queen a4. This leads to the same position. Let's just do it the other way around. Queen a4. And now black doesn't take on e5 or something, but takes on g2. And now it gets funny. White captures on c6. He could also try a move like rook f1, but then you go bishop h3. This is the whole point, because now if the bishop on b5 leaves its position, for instance to take here, then the f1 rook is hanging and it doesn't have any escape square. So if white bishop h3, not king d1, if white would take here, we would transpose to the main game. You will see this later. And an independent try would be something like king d1. And now, for instance, bishop d6. Black is never afraid of the capture here, because white played rook e1 in this example game. If a capture here happens, then at the end, let's say this, for instance, he cannot take here because this one is just hanging as well, and black has a deadly attack on white's king. He's just far better developed. I guess this is really close to a mate already. So rook e1, and now black can just sacrifice a piece here. Knight f6, knight takes c6 and castles. You don't have to remember this stuff really. You will never get this on the board most likely, but it's useful to see the attacking schemes applied here. Knight d4, c5. Yeah, you can see black just has a huge attack. h3, bishop g3, and yeah, white cannot save the e1 rook. This was actually happened in a real tournament game. I don't have the names here written in my score, but white resigned here after 14 moves. You see that this line can lead to really quick disaster. This was rook f1 in this position, what white usually takes here. Takes, queen takes, and now really important, king d8. This is a move you need to remember really, because you somehow think this one would be a good idea, but this isn't so clear after queen takes c7 here. So you need to go to d8. And you mustn't be afraid of the capture on f7. This is just not working, because h1 is hanging with check and complete destruction of the white position. So main move here is rook f1, but we can also look briefly at this if you like. King here is the only move, and now if white, for instance, would try to take here, you can just take here, king e2, and now it's just the matter of the most exact execution here. the first thing, I didn't really look at this before, because it's just losing, but well, let's check quickly. Maybe this one here, king needs to go up, and you can get the king really far up here, and I guess there's a mate coming up somewhere. I'm not seeing it right now, to be honest, but it should be mate. Maybe rook d8. Well, this is, of course, it's just not playable. Maybe even queen f3 here and bishop g4. This could also be a mate. Yeah, well, it's not possible to take on f7. White can take on a8, of course, and this leads to something like this. Takes. And now the very cool move, bishop d6. Check here, king d7. Knight takes. White cannot take here because of the coming attack. Let's say queen check here, king here, and now move like bishop a6, and e2 is just mate. White's queen is not playing on a8. Yeah, this is quite funny stuff, but you just need to be confident that it is winning. It really is, and you need to work your way around the complications in the game. What else is there? Let's say here, and the move rook f1. This is mostly played, and now you need to remember this move. Very powerful move, attacking the rook on f1. You even give this here with check, king e7, and now black is a rook down, but you will get the f1 rook. King d1 needs to prevent the mate. A move like this here can be answered very very nicely with king d6. This doesn't really give anything. At the end, white's king will get executed. It's not much he can do. So king d1 here is the main move. Then takes, and then bishop f5. Now you can count the material and see that it's actually even. After all this hacking, it's from a material point of view, it's an even position. But black has got the far stronger attack going with e3 as a threat, and white's queen side isn't playing at all. Let's say b3, check here, d3. If white goes here, you just push this pawn and something like this, for instance, and black is winning. Funny. So let's say d3, e2, bishop d2, and you can just promote here and have an extra piece. So at the end, bishop b5 is just a questionable move. Black will get a very strong attack. I think it's really not playable for white, but you need to be confident enough to play this really and go into the complications. This can be somewhat funny if you would get this in a blitz game or really low. If you get really little time for this game, like a blitz game, a bullet game or something, then okay, just jump in and try your best in the complications. It's just good for black. If you play this in a tournament game, just go for it and take your time in the messy positions and try to figure it out. You always need to have the confidence that it is really good for you, and you just need to find the right stuff. It's just I think it's just not enough to play a second-rate line here. For instance, black could play something like this and also has a fine position, but this doesn't have the same optimal result, so to say, which is almost a win for black. So bishop b5 is a move you could look forward to if you would get it. So what else is there? White usually tries queen a4 in this position. Has a similar idea, but of course it's not so Yeah, though so weak in comparison because the bishop hasn't left its position on f1, so d takes e4 is just silly now. Here black has more than one good line actually. I'm recommending the easiest to play, and this is the somewhat atypical move f6. f6 just covers the e5 pawn, and therefore asks yeah, white the question what the queen is actually doing on a4. The usual continuation here is something like bishop b5. You could also look at taking on d5 now. Black just recaptures. And now let's say a move like d4. A thing to remember here is, or to take note of, if white tries to develop his bishop here, then black has the very disturbing move queen a4 check. This is useful to remember. White, of course, yeah, cannot interpose because queen is just hanging. So after this check, he needs to do do a king move. So king d1, and then, for instance, bishop e6, and yeah, you see that this pin here on the fourth rank is yeah, very annoying to say the least. A possible line could be d3, rook d8, knight here, rook takes d3, and white can resign. Really a quick accident. It's just useful to remember this check in response to something moving to c4. It can even be a pawn in some lines. This check can be often very very effective in yeah, putting a spanner in the works for white's positions. So d4 here would be normal, and then the move is bishop d7, and this highlights the problematic position of white's queen. It's just yeah, in a somewhat precarious position here. Knight d4 already threatened, and if white tries something like bishop b5 now, note that on this move you have this check again, and then the discovery with the knight. So this check is useful. Bishop b5, and then, for instance, a6, and this is yeah, really already very bad for white. What can he do? The bishop is just hanging, and on c4 you have this check again here, and rook d8, and yeah, white is already losing here. He doesn't have a move really, as b5 is hanging, and he needs to play something along these lines. Oops, not this one. Recaptures, of course, and then queen moves somewhere and takes on e4, and black wins. It's just one huge chunk of material here. So it's really easy for white to get lost in this kind of position, where this was d4, or actually this was taking here. White, bishop b5 is mostly played. I think actually the best move here, but this is rarely played, as yeah, it somewhat makes the whole white setup look somewhat absurd, is d3, and then retreating the queen to c2 back, and white is playing something like a reverse Philidor with yeah, not even an extra tempo. Okay, black has played f6, which is not ideal, but you can just develop your pieces here. Bishop e6, and then maybe knight e7 to g6, e7, c8, b6 would be good. Get the knight to some decent square. Maybe to g6 is best, and bishop e7 castles, and black is just fine. He's got nice central control, but this is maybe still around equal. White doesn't have any direct problems, which after bishop b5 he might have. You just cover this, knight g7, and if white doesn't do anything special, he will need to surrender the bishop pair at some point, because of the silly configuration here of the pieces. E takes d5, queen d5 would be normal, and now yeah, what can white do? Nothing much really. If he castles, you have e4, and yeah, this knight doesn't have a good square. It can go to d4, of course, but after this, yeah, white is in trouble again. What should he do? Knight takes d4 is just threatened with a huge positional advantage, and he doesn't have a good move really. He could exchange here, but now you threaten a6 again, winning the bishop pair, and black is just black is just better here. What can you do? Castles is one possibility, or d4, and after this you can just advance here with e4, and white has a problem with his knight. If he attacks the queen now, you can just retreat. Now the knight is hanging, needs to move, and after this you just capture and have an extra pawn. So c4 is bad, but after, let's say, knight here, queen d5 is also a problem. g2 is hanging. What should white play? He cannot take here, as this one is just hanging. And well, after castles, wins an exchange, or yeah, he can go with something like this. Really horrible move, weakening all white squares, and this is almost for sure fatal in the long run, as the bishop on b5 is most likely exchanged at some point. Bishop d7 now maybe, or maybe bishop h3 also possible. Bishop d7 I would think, with the idea of a6 and getting this bishop. Black has just a clear edge here. So yeah, the Ponziani. So you can see not really an opening that should scare you, but well, it's certainly useful to know d5 here and to have some idea of the tactical complications, especially after bishop b5. This somewhat wide line, but it's just great for black. If you play somewhat slow stuff against the Ponziani, let's say instead of d5 a move like knight f6, white plays d4, you take here, take this one, this. I'm just showing this briefly. Something like this would be the positional, the slow approach, but this is just a relatively boring game where black has equalized maybe, but it's nothing special. And as you can see, after d5 white has got lots of opportunities to lose the game really quickly. So d5 really is the move you should play. I'm really glad that I looked this up a couple of, I don't think 1 or 2 years ago. I studied this a bit, and I'm really satisfied that I did this, because when I got the opening in Blitz games, I think I won all of them quickly with the kind of stuff I just showed. And it's just this opening is something where you should go into. This is something which I call punishment mode. Try to punish the opponent for what he is playing, and you have really good chances to do this in the Ponziani. If white is playing ambitiously, he can always play very let's say solid passive moves, but this shouldn't scare you. Like I mentioned, queen a4, f6, and now a move like d3, or after d5. Of course, white could go d3 as well. But okay, this is just fine for black. You don't need to know any specific stuff here. Just develop your pieces. It's a reversed Philidor, so nothing to be scared of. But if white plays ambitiously, as I've shown with bishop b5, or he plays queen a4 and then tries some funny stuff, then he will most likely get punished. Yeah, this was the Ponziani. In the next video I'll do knight c3, knight f6, and well, basically I'm not sure if I managed the whole 4 knights. Maybe the 4 knights without the Scotch 4 knights, I'm not sure. But this will be the subject for the next video, or maybe I'll take 2 videos. I'm not sure. I think I'll prefer now to split this up more into separate videos to prevent having lots of 40-50 minute videos. It's better to have I think segments of 20 minutes, 25 minutes to cover one specific line or one specific opening, like I did here. Yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, let's hope someone plays the Ponziani against you. Okay, thanks for watching, and talk to you soon.